This is technically the second part of the Cyberpunk 2077 review. I can't be bothered with the game too much anymore. We'll get more into that later. And while I do the Cyberpunk review, we're going to talk about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 and a few other things because I want to try out this new video format. So first things first, I am on Twitter. I've been on Twitter. I've just never talked about it too much. This is me over here. Oh, you want to... Ooh, look at the thing. It's been a very weird couple of weeks for immersive sims. We've had a lot of stuff going on between the revelations about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 to the good revelations about the System Shock remake, and at least Gloomwood seems to be doing okay. Taffer, you're doing okay, right? Taffer King, are you good? So let's get into the first item before we get into the Cyberpunk 2077 review. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines has been delayed for like the third or fourth time now. So I will stick to my opinion that one delay is reassuring, 2 delays is questionable because that means that management has repeatedly failed to properly scope out their project. And at 3 delays, you take all your expectations and put the bar like an inch above the floor. This is very much that case. If anything now, I'm going to be amazed if the game comes out. For those of you that did not see, basically, I guess Paradox is now running the Steam page on VTMB2 because they said, hey, big announcement. As of now, Hardsuit Labs is no longer working on the project. It has been pushed to at least 2022. Their words, I believe, are delayed indefinitely. And the way they phrased it is that Hardsuit Labs laid a great foundation, which is kind of weird because they kept on talking about how the game was almost done. So, which is it? No new development studio has been named about, who's going to be taking over Bloodlines 2. And I also wrote on here that apparently it was in a late stage of development, but based on that verbiage, when I reread the announcement, I don't know what to believe anymore about that. Because, yeah, the stuff they showed at that one convention before Rona was pretty good looking. And Outstar, who is now the, I believe, the World of Darkness community manager, good on her, she said she loved playing the game. And I have no reason not to take her word seriously. But there's still that discrepancy between what we've seen versus the wording of what these guys said. Maybe something that might shed light onto how far along it actually was that, yeah, they were saying it was in a late stage, but then a lot of people didn't notice it because this was around the time that the country was imploding and just people in, I believe, Seattle wanted to create a free state. But they did a reveal for the character Damsel from the first Bloodlines game, just kind of unprompted out of nowhere. And I went and finally watched it after I saw some stuff oh, she is in the game. And I'll just put a picture up here. What? She looks like some sort of goblin. I know faces can be hard, but especially if I'll link the trailer. If you scrutinize it, you can see the animation, her moving behind you is really weird. And it really shows that maybe Hardsuit Labs was not anywhere near as far along as we thought they were. A silver lining to all this is, well, yes, Paradox just fired an entire development team from a project. At least that means that Paradox is still willing to salvage the project, and they aren't just going to rush it out to have it be terrible. They aren't just going to abandon the whole thing. They're willing to see this through. Circling back to Miss Outstar, she makes a very good point that about the whole thing about the Obsidian guys that worked on the first Bloodline being let go from the company. She brings up a point that I had not thought about until now, and I wish I had thought about it, that sometimes people just get fired for bland stuff, stuff that it's not worth releasing a press statement about. Her example was, maybe she overslept a few many times and kept being late to work, and therefore she got fired. They're not saying that was that case, but that's a perfectly good point. Is it might not be corporate politics, it might not be some egregious thing, it could just be fired for unrelated reasons. But at this point, everything about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is yikes. It's I am very worried for the game. They don't even let you pre-order it now. I already pre-ordered it because I am an ultra consumer. But I don't know, man. It's What are your thoughts on the development of Bloodlines 2? Alright, now let's finally talk about Cyberpunk 2077 Part 2. I had no will to continue playing Cyberpunk 2077 after I got to the end of the story. I know a lot of people are like, I played 60 hours, I played 90 hours, I put 250 hours into Cyberpunk 2077 before the year's end. And to which I say, good for you. I personally, I got 30 some hours out of it, and I just had no will to replay the game. And I'm primarily doing this because enough of you asked me to do it that I did not want to be disrespectful to you guys and not make a video. So, things I have missed since the last Cyberpunk review that went into the gameplay category. Yeah, the driving is just really bad. I thought it was because I just picked some cars that were very squirrely, but all the cars are very squirrely, and looking back, I played some more Grand Theft Auto after I played Cyberpunk. I played some other games with driving, and despite how big of a game it is, Cyberpunk 2077 possibly has some of the worst driving mechanics I have played in a modern game. Other than that, we've got the reputation system, which I thought I was going to talk about in the story segment, but here we are in the story segment. So I'll just say, parts of it do make sense, but the rest of it doesn't. As for the whole getting reputation for doing mercenary jobs for the cops, I could see that in a sense of you get more reputation with the private company that runs the police work. It makes sense for this private company to try to do this because they're basically outsourcing labor for violent crime instead of driving people around in traffic duty. That probably cuts way down on healthcare payout. So that bit makes sense. However, it falls apart when reputation is universal among everyone. If anything, if I have a high reputation among law enforcement, I should have a very low reputation among the various gangs. And additionally, speaking of those gangs, it makes no sense that there's no real way to get in with the gangs. You can't make proper allies. They either ignore you or you're shoot on sight. And that's just really shallow. It would be cool if you could actually just in a lot of other games, actually, join a faction, become friendly with these people and use that to your benefit. But unfortunately, that ship has sailed. All right, so now let's talk about the general world and stuff, which I can best summarize as there's a lot of stuff, but there is very little substance. Very little stands up to scrutiny. You can see here, at a distance, you see, oh, there's a bunch of little shack shanty towns out in the distance, out in the Badlands. I wonder what's up there. Maybe people are living there. Maybe I can find something. And then you go run up to these shanty cities, and they don't even have doors. They're props. They're things that you are not supposed to go and look up close at. And that describes a lot of Cyberpunk 2077 is they were hoping you wouldn't look too closely at this. And while that is a fair aspect of game design, but if you're going to do that in a video game, it would be smart to put them in places where the player can't actually look up close. I don't care if you do it with invisible walls or some sort of gating, but I believe friend and colleague the Yamix also showed in his video, when you go up on the roof of the buildings, they're all just a bunch of random props and stuff. It's doors sticking out at random angles. Gangs do nothing. Civilians do nothing, cops do nothing. No one is actually doing anything unless it is a part of a main quest. And then if it is part of a main quest, they will not do the thing until you help them do it. And there is no payoff for really aiding any of the major factions outside of the ending. It's yeah, cool, I helped the Aldecaldos out, but you don't see them starting to actively have more raids. You don't get an expansion to their store inventories. You do get a little caught. And that's the big thing with all the factions is if you complete their quest line, you get a new place to sleep, but you don't really need to sleep or rest in Cyberpunk 2077. So that's pointless. I was about to say, oh, I can skip time in another place, but you can skip time literally anywhere. So the reward of having a new place to store your junk and fall asleep is pointless and empty. And again, just goes to this overall topic card here of there's nothing going on. And lastly, yeah, you can call people and occasionally have some small talk. The only person I really had any small talk with was with Panam. But other than that, 90% of the messages you receive are either updates that a main quest is now available or, please buy my car. And that's just so unsatisfying. It's again, Grand Theft Auto 5, which is now, geez, that game is ancient. That had a better system than that. So many other games do like following up on stuff better, whereas Cyberpunk, it's again just buy my car. There are two kinds of side quests in Cyberpunk 2077. A generic thing. It's like when you had to go find that dude stuffed in a refrigerator and bring him to this weirdo at the club. These are stuff that like it has no effect on anything. It's just a one and done quest. And it's basically, they all boil down to go do the thing. There are no consequences for you doing this thing. The second kind of like quest you can do is something usually related to one of the major factions, like the Aldecado, helping out the Arasaka loyalists, all that stuff. And these are hit and miss. Some of them are meh, some of them are very interesting, and then there are a few one-offs, like the one that I liked the most was the what is it called? The Sinnerman. That was what it was called. I thought it was Savior Man for a sec, but the one about the man on death row who's going to have his execution be a reenactment of the Passion. And that was cool at first, but like pretty much everything else in Cyberpunk, once it starts looking good, you look closely at a small detail and realize it's all been slapped together. The moment for me in this was when you're walking to the Braindance studio to do the Passion, like, oh wow, there are people protesting outside. And then you look closely at the protesters and realize they're holding the same generic signs that the homeless people are posting. Almost none of these signs have anything to do with the fact that some people apparently are very opposed to the idea of having this religious thing reenacted in such a way, especially because this man is apparently purporting to be the next incarnation of the Savior. I have to admit, memory's a little spotty. It's been a few months since I played. All right, so let's talk about the main story. The main story, it definitely has its moments. There are some cool times when like you're getting ready to do stuff, especially in the early part, like Act 1. There's a lot of really cool moments there. However, there are some things that just drag. For me, I felt like a lot of the Keanu flashbacks really outstayed their welcome. And especially to that point, the story will often be hindered by bugs, particularly audio bugs. Spoilers, by the way, we're getting into spoiler territory. The moment where you're reliving Johnny Silverhand's, like when he found out about Alt Cunningham, and he starts performing a rock show to like cover for, oh, we're going to attack Arasaka. There's this riff, this like 2.5 second loop that is probably only supposed to be played for about 5 seconds, but the loop never stopped in my playthrough, so I couldn't hear any of these big dramatic moments, including like the music, which someone put a lot of effort into perfectly composing music for that segment, because this like 3-chord like guitar riff kept playing over everything. And yes, well, eventually a patch will fix that, I hope someday. That still ruins the moment. Like, you can't relive that first moment all over again. And that is a big detractor with the story of Cyberpunk, is that, yes, there are some moments in the story, but the moments fall apart when they're getting good because the game is just so shoddily put together in the state it was in when we all played it, that it just... And other than that, I found the ending choices to be very meh. I sided with the Aldecado ending, I looked at the other endings, and I felt very glad that I did not go back to replay. For those of you that don't know, Cyberpunk 2077, after you beat the game, you are taken back to the moment before you pick your final choice in the story. And all the endings kind of felt dissatisfying, especially because the overarching theme of, oh, you did all these things and you did everything right, but it's not going to work anyway. And while I will respect and accept that that is a valid writing choice to make, after all the hours you put into the story, that felt very disappointing. It's like, wait, so this was for nothing? And I can see why they also now have the options to just let Johnny Silverhand take over your body, because if it's pointless, why bother? But at the same time, that feels very unsatisfying, because depending on your relationship with Johnny Silverhand, he can be like, yeah, let's just get me out of your brain. I don't belong here. I appreciate you tried to help me in these few things, but I've got to go. So it's the ending nobody wants that seems to make the most sense. There's also a complete lack of choice for a lot of things. Almost all the dialogue options, this was figured out like within a week of the game coming out, but like nearly all the dialogue options, the only thing they would affect is if they affected anything at all, you got a slightly different reaction line from the characters, and sequences will almost always railroad you into a certain pattern of events happening. The only real area that has like a branching path is Act 1, where you have choices of who do you side with, who do you help out, and all this stuff, but there's no payoff at the end. Like, it's not just in how like there's like no way you can have a better outcome for the heist, but also in my first playthrough, I decided to help out the Reavers, and on top of helping out the Reavers, I found the old gang leader hidden, and I decided to save him, and he was able to escape. But that never comes back. Like, nothing ever comes back. I think the only thing you get for certain like outlines is you can have a one-off romance cutscene, which for those of you that know, they're very bad. That is the only potential thing you can unlock. There's no way to go into the heist better prepared. I know it's like because they need a certain beat of the story to happen, but it would have been very satisfying if, I don't know, maybe we could save Jackie because like we saved that guy and he's going to come back to help us later. But everything just boils down to, yes, we have all these dialogue choices, but you're going to experience the story exactly how we want you to experience it. And yes, you can massacre all these people towards the end if you really wanted to, but by the time you get to that point, you've already done everything you need to do with the Voodoo Boys, and it would be pointless if you did or didn't. And there is a big conversation to be had about the illusion of choice in games, but if you're going to sell yourself on all these branching paths you can take and how you can live in the world of Night City, at least give us that illusion of choice. So Cyberpunk 2077, at this point, now that it's left the zeitgeist, and if anything, this review is way too late, the best way to sum up Cyberpunk 2077 is, if only. Everything here could have been so great, but due to a bunch of circumstances, some outside of the control of CDPR, some well within their control, it just fell flat on its face. And while a lot of people really liked the game, it's undeniable that the game was released in an absolutely inexcusable state, and now they are going to be on the back foot for who knows how long, because on top of having to play catch up to get Cyberpunk 2077 into a decent state, that's going to put them way behind on their next project. And additionally, potential partners that they could go with for like new projects, like new IPs or new studios to work with, they are going to be very gun shy after seeing what happened with Cyberpunk 2077. So it's a big bummer. It's a big if only this has been great. Even if it wasn't the insane thing we all thought it was, if it could have at least been competent, we would have all been much happier. Like, I know I talked about in my prediction video where I somehow managed to be 100% right on everything, that this was never going to satisfy everyone. And if people, like, if they delayed it, like, to say now, like if Cyberpunk came out now, people would have lost their minds because they'd already delayed it so many times anyway. And also circling back to Bloodlines 2, at a certain point, all the delays in the world aren't going to help the final product if you have no idea what you're doing, which when we think about that, maybe it was the best choice that Paradox could have made to kick Hardsuit Labs off the project if they were consistently failing, and again, no amount of delays was getting the final product out the door in a finished state. So all I can say is here's to hoping that whoever gets Bloodlines 2 does a good job and takes care of the intellectual property. I'm very bummed out about how all this ended with Cyberpunk 2077. I hope that one day they do get the game into a functional state, and I'm going to, for me at least, intentionally not play it again until like 2 years from now when everything is hopefully fixed, and then try to forget about as much as I could from my first playthrough and maybe try to have the experience that CDPR intended me to have at some point in time. But unfortunately, some of these things, like unless they radically rewrite the story, which allegedly they have a crap load of unused lines, I don't think that's going to happen. So I want to thank you all for staying with me. This is an experimental type of video that the main focus is I need to be able to produce content faster because I am making all the videos for Halloween in July in advance. And in order to do that, I need to have a faster version of making like videos for now. This is not going to completely replace all the videos I'm doing, but I might try one video like this and then one traditional video a month so that I can focus on making the videos for Halloween in July. So please tell me what you think of these. If you like this is cool. If not, I will continue to tweak the formula. I might just splurge on that teleprompter because then I can make a traditional script, but instead record in front of a camera like this. Also, there is the added benefit of we get flooful. Oh, I woke you again. I'm the worst daddy ever. So thank you all so much to patrons. Thank you to viewers. If you would like to support what I'm doing, please head on over to patreon.com/charlatanwonder. And in the meantime, please stay safe, stay indoors. When you have to go out, make sure to wear your mask and practice social distancing, wash your hands, and enjoy this cat video. Even though the cat's already been here the whole video. I guess this is all cat videos.
This is fine. This works.
Saucy boy, you're not even properly in the bag. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you a bag boy? Wait, what was even in this bag?
I use it when I need to go to the university and have my clothing, food, and stuff, and it's bigger than my other.
Oh, that's why it's got the mommy smells in there. They're better than daddy smells. I can scoop you up in this. Oh no. Oh no, I couldn't actually scoop you up in this, and now you're hiding in the dark. You know what? You know what? It's my bag now. Oh, and one last thing before we go, just because I noticed it in editing. As you might have noticed, this wall's pretty barren. If you want to like draw something and have me put it like right around here, or you've got anything that we can put on the wall, maybe I'll put patron's name on the wall here. But if you got any idea what you'd like me to put on this wall, go ahead and put it in the comments, because I've got art, as you can see. I have this comic book I'm fond of over here, but I don't really have anything else for this wall that usually the green screen goes in front of.